Since the rise of online forums like 4chan in the early 2010s, online horror stories known as creepypastas have expanded from niche message boards into global phenomenon. One of those stories, known as sonic.exe, would begin a subgenre of stories within the community, which often followed a haunted or scary video game. The genre would quickly become extremely popular, with people no longer having to create their own original monsters like Slenderman or Jeff the Killer. They could just write a story about an evil video game, slap a bit of blood on it, and call it a day. Many video games have creepypastas written about them that are still iconic to this day, even including Nintendo's favorite Italian plumber, Mario. So today I created a 3-layer iceberg image with some of the most well-known to the most obscure stories about Super Mario creepypastas. But with all that out of the way, let's not waste any more time, and let's jump right in. Mario.exe. Mario.exe is a ROM hack that was directly inspired by the sonic.exe ROM hack released around the same time. The game begins with the player selecting Luigi and playing through the first level of the original Super Mario Bros. However, once Luigi reaches the castle, an evil, demented version of Mario burns down the castle, killing multiple toads inside. After narrowly escaping his brother, Luigi is forced underground, where he's confronted by the gruesome violence caused by Mario. Luigi is forced to escape the underground caverns, and after a fight with a zombie toad that Mario had killed, Luigi enters the next level. Now entering the treetops, Luigi witnesses Mario shoving Princess Peach off a ledge, resulting in her death, leaving Luigi the only one left alive. The story ends with Luigi entering Bowser's abandoned castle and being murdered by his brother. This ROM hack would gain a significant amount of popularity in the early 2010s due to the sonic.exe boom. However, now the story is seen as extremely goofy. Mario.85. Mario.85 is a creepypasta horror game created by Taco Games and released on December 1st, 2021. However, since the characters and stories have been given to a person known as Razzle Dazzle Do. The story follows a kid named Lucas who received a copy of Super Mario Bros. For the NES from his uncle for his birthday. Upon opening up the game, something was immediately wrong. The game would only allow Lucas to play as Luigi, and as he played, the world would become dark and distorted, with item boxes disappearing and the level becoming increasingly corrupted. Once reaching the end of the level, Lucas was greeted by a twisted version of Mario known as MX. MX is an ancient malevolent spirit that haunts this copy of Super Mario Bros., tricking any unsuspecting players into becoming his plaything forever. MX would begin speaking to Lucas, saying the words, "Innocence doesn't get you far," before punching a toad into a broken flagpole, causing the toad to explode into gory bits. The game then tells Lucas to run, which triggers a violent chase through the level, with MX destroying pipes and blocks around the world just by running through them. Lucas does manage to escape within the game, however it is explained that Lucas dies and his soul becomes trapped inside the cartridge, making him MX's plaything for eternity. I Hate You. I Hate You is a creepypasta created by Slime Beast, who is also known for creating the creepypasta Abandoned by Disney. The story begins with the narrator getting his first computer in 1996 and quickly becoming obsessed with pirated games, one of which being Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. During one of his many playthroughs of the game, at the end of the sunken ship level right before Bowser's castle, the normal pipe to exit the level would be blocked by one of the boos that haunt the level. However, unlike the other boos, this boo was missing its eyes, making it appear blind. Instead, above the pipe, a strangely placed key and lock would sit, and with that being the only way to end the level, the narrator picked up the key and went inside the strange keyhole. Once exiting the pirate ship, the world had changed. The sculpture of Bowser's face now leaked blood, and the level read, "Oh God, no." Mario's expression had also changed from its normal happy one to one of fear and anguish. Entering the level, the author would be greeted by a underwater castle with long hallways with more of those blind boos and bloody bonsai bills. There were also messages smeared across the wall in blood reading, "I hate you." Deeper within the underwater castle, the narrator would encounter a long corridor of thwomps stained with blood from previous victims. Here, the author would also encounter a hallway full of spikes along with dead, drowned Mario that floated around them. Once Mario reached the end of the castle, he would be confronted by his brother Luigi, who would reveal that he had been working with Bowser due to being jealous of his brother's success and fame. This confrontation would result in a violent boss battle, which ended with Mario knocking Luigi into a lava pit below, with him screaming his last words, "Oh God, no." The game would end with the once happy photo of Mario, Luigi, and the princess, now replaced with Mario and the princess looking upset next to a burned and charred Luigi. Years since the creepypasta's release, Slime Beast, the creator of the original story, has admitted that the story was satire and was meant to make fun of other video game creepypastas. However, many people still consider it one of the best written video game creepypastas despite it being satire. Coronation Day. Coronation Day, also known as is a Super Mario World ROM hack released in January 2016 that recently got a huge update in summer of 2025. The story of Coronation Day is a constant time loop of Mario going to save Princess Peach, who has been possessed by an eldritch god known as the Forest King. The Forest King uses Peach to lure in Mario, and it is likely that Mario and Peach are already dead and are in some kind of purgatory. The game allegedly has 7 endings. Firstly, there's the red ending. Peach is killed and Mario finds a red/pink corrupted world and becomes trapped in front of a blood pool. Then there's the house ending. Guided by a voice, Mario builds a bizarre house and the game crashes afterwards. The staring ending, Mario sees a ghostly version of himself staring at him and the game resets. Then the useless ending, which is caused by Mario standing still. The entity will insult you and then leave, resulting in the game freezing. The pink forest ending, with a hidden debug area filled with gore and mutilated enemies, which ends with the game crashing. Then the well ending, finding a corpse Mario in a red version of a house, resulting in the game crashing. And finally, the hell ending, which is often considered the true ending, where Mario burns down the forest and gets engulfed in flames. Coronation Day is a huge ROM hack, one of the most ambitious ROM hacks I've ever come across. I definitely didn't cover everything here, so go check out Coronation Day for yourself. Mario. Mario is a Super Mario World ROM hack / creepypasta that was released in 2010 on the Super Mario World Central Board, which is a site dedicated to sharing ROM hacks for Super Mario World. One of these users, named Adam, downloaded a obscure mod that was just named Mario and documented his journey through the game. Once in the game, the hack quickly showed itself to be strange. The normal bright color palette was gone, and all the mentions of Bowser had been replaced with Mario, implying that he was the villain. Deeper within the game, Adam would notice that all the advice texts would warn Mario to turn back and tell him he was no longer welcome in the game. In addition, many of the levels had been changed. Coins had already been collected, and the music was completely gone, and even one of the levels was completely missing, being replaced with a black void. After beating the Koopaling boss at the end of World 1, Mario saves the Yoshi egg and goes outside to blow up the castle. However, instead of the normal congratulatory text, the text reads like a police report detailing a murder victim. After this, the hack features one more level, which encourages Mario to fly away before the game crashes. Within the files, the game also included a notepad document, which once deciphered showed an image of a red-faced person screaming in a dark void. After these findings, along with Adam's thread, the hack would quickly go viral, with the image and story becoming one of the most iconic gaming creepypastas of all time. The creepypasta's legacy is still seen to this day, with a large online search that happened earlier this year for the original unedited image used in the creepypasta. There's a lot more to this story, as the game has multiple sequels and even a whole ARG, so if you're interested, I highly encourage you to go check out a video created by KTB, which goes into a lot more depth than I ever could. Hell Valley Sky Trees. Hell Valley Sky Trees is a urban legend surrounding the level Shiverburn Galaxy in Super Mario Galaxy 2. It's said that if you go into first-person mode and look around towards the end of the level, you can find a group of dark figures looking down at you. It is unknown what these creatures are meant to represent, however the most credible theory is that they are a reference to the Japanese tree spirit known as a Kodama. Every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized. Every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized is a theory and is actually one of the reasons why Iceberg videos like these blew up. The rumor states that in early versions of Super Mario 64, an experimental artificial intelligence was used to tailor to the player's wants for the game. The theory was made due to people often misremembering Super Mario 64, remembering things that often never happened in-game. However, there is no evidence that any advanced AI was used in the creation of Super Mario 64. The Wario Apparition. The Wario Apparition is a creepypasta/urban legend that gained a lot of popularity around the same time as every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized. The creepypasta involves players seeing a disembodied Wario head in a long hallway before it begins chasing the player down an endless corridor. Now, in reality, there was no evidence that Wario was a part of the game's development at all. However, during E3 1996, a floating Wario head would introduce the show. So this is likely where they got the inspiration for the creepypasta. Mario Party DS Anti-Piracy Screen. Mario Party DS Anti-Piracy Screen is a fake hoax video uploaded in 2020 by the YouTuber Joey Perloni. The video showed a player using an illegal pirated copy of Super Mario Party for the DS. However, the game suddenly shuts down and shows the Mario gang behind bars, with the game noticing the player's pirated copy and telling them to power down the console. The video quickly became popular on YouTube, with many finding the video creepy. However, the video is not real, and Joey Perloni has uploaded videos that are very similar. L is Real 2401. L is Real 2401 is a infamous urban legend that supposedly shows a way to unlock Luigi in Super Mario 64. In the courtyard behind the castle, there's a small star fountain that has some very blurry text on a plaque that many read as L is Real 2401. Many people have their own theories on what 240 could mean. Some believe they have to collect 2,401 coins, while others believe they have to run around the fountain 2,401 times. However, there is no unlockable Luigi in Super Mario 64. It was shown during a massive Giga leak in 2020 that Luigi had been planned as some kind of co-op mode, but the developers were never able to get it to work. Super Mario 64 Classified. Super Mario 64 Classified is an analog horror series that was uploaded to Super Mario 64 Classified official YouTube channel in 2020. The story plays into the every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized theory, with the videos following a software developer named Jim working on an early version of Super Mario 64, who after experiencing a seizure due to the game becomes obsessed with the artificial AI named Stanley. Throughout the tapes, we learn that Stanley is put through immense pain whenever someone turns on the personalization feature. However, Jim continues to play, resulting in the torture of Stanley. The series is extremely well made and is still somewhat ongoing, with the last upload being 5 months ago, and I highly recommend you guys to check it out for yourselves. Super Horror Mario. Super Horror Mario is a art piece uploaded on DeviantArt by the user Shadow Shauna in November of 2011. The image has become an iconic piece of creepypasta history, with the image being used for many YouTube thumbnails and games from the time. Mario Eel. Mario Eel is in reference to the scary eel found in the level Jolly Roger Bay from Super Mario 64. During the game, players are forced to go underwater and wait for the eel to leave its hideout so they can collect its star. Many players have found the eel unnerving, which has resulted in the eel becoming an iconic part of the game. Super Mario 64 Damned. Super Mario 64 Damned is a creepypasta released in 2012. The story follows a narrator and his girlfriend who go to the narrator's uncle's video game shop, where they get a Nintendo 64 and a copy of Super Mario 64, which had a history of being returned to the shop. Upon returning to their home, almost immediately, the game began acting strange. The save files from the previous person would return after being deleted, the game would let out loud screeches, and the levels would only load into a corrupted version of Big Boo's haunt, which was now a blood-covered castle surrounded by bodies. As the couple kept playing, the game showed a disturbing and graphic scene of Mario being tortured and killed that ended with Mario getting his eyes stitched shut. Eventually, the narrator becomes overwhelmed with the disturbing imagery and unplugged the system, only for the system to mysteriously turn itself back on later and continue the game exactly where they had left off. The corruption quickly grew worse. The save files showed horrifying images, Peach and Toad were found dead, and Mario himself had become the villain. The entire castle was transformed into a nightmare filled with corpses, blood, and demonic images. At the end of the story, the narrator finds a hanging body inside the game, only to realize it's him, his own corpse within the game. After witnessing his own corpse, the screen glitches and the room fills with screaming. The last thing the narrator remembers before he blacks out is a shadow man standing over him. Mario the Music Box. Mario the Music Box is a RPG Maker horror game created by Team Ari and released in 2015. The game follows Mario, who hears of rumors of a mansion in the Mushroom Kingdom that has a history of disappearances and decides to check it out. Once inside the mansion, Mario stumbles upon a music box which locks him in the mansion and traps him with the ghost family that inhabits it. The rest of the game follows Mario attempting to escape from the mansion, however he becomes possessed by a ghost named Alice. The game is centered around exploration, diary entries, and multiple endings depending on the choices you make. However, the wrong choices often lead to the gruesome and violent death of Mario. The game would quickly grow popular on YouTube, with YouTubers playing the game and showing off the unique and gruesome deaths. Mario from Hell. Mario from Hell is an animation that features a distorted, evil version of Mario with a big head made to look like Hiroshi Imishi, who was a former employee at Nintendo. In this animation, Bowser begins attacking this strange version of Mario before using the axe that ends the level to drop him in lava, before Mario climbs out and begins chasing him and the princess. And that was the end of Layer 1, which featured some of the most well-known creepypastas and scary things from Mario games. Next, we'll be heading into Layer 2, which will feature more obscure and strange stories from the Mario series. Too Late.exe. Toolate.exe is a creepypasta fan game created by Mr. Pixel Productions in 2022. The game begins with Mario jumping up and grabbing Luigi's hat, which results in him breaking down into tears, indicating that something bad has happened to his brother. After the title screen, a grief-stricken Mario attempts to make it through the first level before stopping at the end of the level, saying that he can't go on without his brother. However, suddenly, Mario hears Luigi call out from the distance, and once Mario finds him, he finds a strange, malformed version of his beloved brother. Mario called out to Luigi, questioning if it was truly him. Luigi responds that it is the real Luigi, before transforming into a lanky monster and biting off Mario's head, and stating that Mario's journey is far from over. After this, Mario's taken back to the menu screen, where Luigi hands break the fourth wall and grip the game board, resulting in the board shattering and Mario plummeting into a deep hole. It is now up to Mario to escape this dark world he has fallen into, while being chased by this demented version of his brother. In the final level, it is revealed that during a fight with Bowser, Mario dropped the axe to cut the bridge without checking if Luigi was safe yet, resulting in Luigi being dropped into the molten lava below, which is why Luigi is so vengeful. The game ends with Luigi dropping Mario into the pit just the same way he was, resulting in his death. Five Nights at Wario's. Five Nights at Wario's is a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game that uses Mario characters instead of animatronics that was released in early 2015 at the height of FNAF's popularity. The game follows a night guard named Richard McRoy who gets hired to watch over Wario's fast food factory, which was once a bustling place but now sits abandoned. However, Wario and his workers come out of hiding as possessed souls inhabiting their old deceased bodies and haunt the player. The series has since grown from this original game into a popular series with over 15 games. Super Mario 64 Big Star Secret. Super Mario 64 Big Star Secret is a lost video from the year 2007. The video followed a person showing the viewers a way to unlock Luigi in Super Mario 64, however, instead the video would turn into a screamer. The video would quickly go viral, with many innocent kids being jump scared by the video, which resulted in the uploader deleting it due to backlash he received from the jump scare. This resulted in the video becoming lost, however, small snippets of the video have survived, and there's even a reaction video of someone watching the video. Please Come to the Castle. Please Come to the Castle is a ROM hack created by Felleg in mid-2019 that centers around a eerie copy of Super Mario 64. The game begins with Peach, with no eyes, inviting Mario to the castle, and when Mario arrives, he is also missing his eyes. The rest of the game is Mario exploring the castle, attempting to find Princess Peach as she calls out for him, leading him deeper within the castle walls. Throughout the castle, there is constant re-emerging imagery of ghostly apparitions of Peach that attack the player and creepy eyeballs that spin around. The game ends with Mario being surrounded by static in a cage with a giant eyeball looking down at him. Mario Victimization. Mario Victimization is a video uploaded by Vibing Leaf, a artist and horror creator known for his creepypasta retakes, with Mario Victimization being a retake of the creepypasta Mario. The video begins with a strange, almost MS Paint looking version of Super Mario World before switching to VHS footage showing a man in a Mario mask approaching the camera. The video then quickly switches to footage of a 3D face distorting, which looks very similar to the face from the Mario creepypasta. In the description, Vibing Leaf credits the inspiration for the video being a video of a strange Mario fan game before abruptly cutting to a man with a Mario mask stabbing the camera. Mario Nights. Mario Nights is a creepypasta urban legend surrounding a supposed Mario horror game for the Super Nintendo. The game began with Mario having to go to the Night Kingdom, where he would have to save the princess from a new villain known as Emperor Eag. The rest of the game follows Mario exploring the kingdom with a trusty flashlight to scare off enemies like spiders and worms. The game also featured new abilities such as Mario getting turned into a jelly blob or a maggot, and even a gray-colored Yoshi that spits acid towards enemies. The game would have ended with a final fight with the Emperor where he would bite off Princess Peach's head. The creepypasta would go on to become an unintentional hoax, with many people online believing it was real. However, in reality, it was a creepypasta created by Slime Beast, the same individual who made I Hate You. Mike Robertson. Mike Robertson is a creepypasta and urban legend that follows a person named Mike Robertson. The story begins with Mike joining a game show to win a copy of Super Mario 64. However, during the game show, the host's daughter, who was also a participant, cheated, and when Mike spoke up about the cheating, he was mocked and ignored. Then that night, the host tricked Mike to coming back to the studio and instructed his guards to beat Mike brutally and left him at a tree. Mike, now disfigured and beaten, joins a costume contest on the same game show to get his revenge against everyone there. Now donning a Mario costume, Mark threatens the game show host, and it was found out later that the host and his whole family, including his guards, had died that very night. Goal Ghost. Goal Ghost is an Easter egg found in the 4th level of the 4th world in Super Mario 3D Land. It's said that if the player stands near the iron fence at the end of the level, they can see a ghostly apparition in the background. While the reason behind why it's there is unknown, many believe it is due to being the 4th level of the 4th world, which 4 is commonly considered a unlucky or evil number in Japan. Hanging Luigi. Hanging Luigi is a creepy visual glitch found in Luigi's Mansion. In the telephone room, when Luigi receives a phone call, lightning will strike, which will show Luigi's shadow, which resembles Luigi hanging himself. However, many thought the shadow was intentional, but it was just a lighting glitch in-game. Why I will never play another Mario game. Why I Will Never Play Another Mario Game is a creepypasta written in 2018 by a user known as Insomniac. Our story begins with a kid receiving $250 for his birthday and immediately going out and buying a Nintendo 64. However, the only game left in the store was a strange copy of Super Mario 64, which was labeled not to sell under any circumstances, but the game store employee sells it to the kid anyway. When beginning the game, the narrator was immediately put off. Instead of the normal text of Peach kindly asking Mario to come to the castle, it said, "Dear player, you don't know what you're getting into. Turn off the system and get help. Yours truly, previous owner." However, the narrator didn't listen, and the game would continue to threaten and warn the player with all the text either saying something was going to kill them or telling them to turn off the system. After collecting 18 stars, the narrator would gain access to fight Bowser, and after defeating him, he watches Bowser walk to the edge of the room and transform into a tall, pitch-black creature. Continuing, the player eventually makes it to the endless staircase at the end of the game, but instead of Bowser's photos lining the walls, photos of the player's family were in its place, including his dog who had passed away recently. By now, it was around 2 to 3 a.m., and the narrator knew their parents weren't home yet, but then they suddenly heard footsteps outside their bedroom door, and when they went to go check, it was only darkness. Continuing on within the game, once at the top of the stairs, the game completely took over, with the player no longer having control, and Mario now looking more and more like the Bowser creature. The Mario creature would walk up and reach his hand through the final painting at the end of the hallway, which resembled a TV set. Static would erupt from his screen as Mario pushed himself deeper within the painting, causing his TV to explode in a fiery blaze. The narrator watched as a creature emerged from the wreckage of his TV, and quickly the narrator dashed out the window, jumping out of it and hitting the cold concrete below. 5 days later, the narrator would wake up in a hospital room with a minor head injury. His house had caught on fire after the explosion, and the narrator would have to stay in a hotel for a while. Weeks after the incident, the narrator would return to school, and the narrator's friends would tell him about a kid named Jeff who had bought the same copy of Super Mario 64 from the same store before the narrator. The story ends with the narrator being told that Jeff was found dead in his own home, hanging by the Nintendo 64 controller. Mario Dream Team. Mario Dream Team is a creepypasta surrounding the game Super Mario Bros. Dream Team, created by Tricky Troy in April of 2023. The creepypasta begins with Mario and Luigi in a battle within the dream world before Luigi suddenly collapses. Mario quickly rushes to his brother's side, however Luigi lay there unresponsive. The dream world began collapsing in on itself, the colors of the world morphed into one another before the world went black. When Mario awoke, the dream world had changed. Now it was cold and quiet, a shell of the vibrant place it had once been. Worst of all, deformed corpses of Luigi laid around the world, constantly reminding Mario of his brother. Deeper within the void, Mario would come across Luigi lying face down on the ground. Hoping to find his brother alive, Mario flipped over the body only to see Luigi's blurred and distorted face. Suddenly, all the other Luigi corpses began walking, crying out for their brother Mario. The rest of the story follows Mario attempting to escape Luigi's subconscious after he suddenly died while being in there, leaving Mario stuck in the decaying brain of his dead brother. Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu is a Super Mario World ROM hack based on the cosmic horror and sci-fi book of the same name by H.P. Lovecraft. The game follows Mario trapped in the land of Relaya, the sunken city harboring Cthulhu. In the game, a cult of Cthulhu worshippers is attempting to revive the sleeping god and attempt to sacrifice an angel to awake him, and it is up to Mario to put a stop to it. The mod gained a lot of popularity in the early 2010s and is well known as one of Mario's best ROM hacks. And that was the end of Layer 2, which included some of the more obscure stories, but now we'll be heading into Layer 3, which almost nobody will know. Super Mario 128. Super Mario 128 is a creepypasta centered around the cancelled Mario GameCube game, Super Mario 128. In the creepypasta, the narrator reveals that Nintendo had recently released the cancelled demo for Super Mario 128 online, and the narrator is using this story to document his findings. The game opened with simple white text over a black background, and when he began to play, Bowser would begin to speak. Bowser would say, "Mario, I have taken Princess Peach. She will not live to see sunrise tomorrow unless you take her place. You know what to do and where to go. Do not try and stop me unless you want to hasten her death." As the game began, the narrator would notice various things off with the game. Some parts of the game were extremely detailed, like Mario's body, and other assets were ripped from Super Mario 64, showing that the demo was possibly older than the GameCube era. Mario's movement was different as well. His jumps were more subdued and less cartoony, and the player had very little control over Mario once he was in the air. As the game continued, the bright world slowly began to become more dreary and covered in clouds of rain. The player would eventually make it to a small platform with a toad, and when speaking to it, it would say, "We don't want you anymore, Mario. You don't belong here. Just give Bowser what he wants. Die." However, after this interaction with the toad, Mario would just stand there before suddenly jumping off the platform and going limp. Mario would plummet into the bustling city below, crashing down with a loud thud before lying in the middle of the sidewalk as passerbys ignored him. Eventually, Mario would peel himself off the pavement and begin exploring the city. None of the buildings were interactable except a small house that read House of Torn Memories. This was a title for a new level, and when the player entered it, they would be taken to the inside of a house, and Mario would become the size of a child, making everything in the house appear much larger than it actually was. While exploring the house, the player would find a basement, and inside there were two child-sized skeletons. Suddenly, Bowser would break through the ceiling and land right in front of Mario, but Bowser didn't look right. His body was long and lanky, and he had sharp claws and spikes all around himself, and small but intense eyes. Bowser would speak out, "You've kept me waiting long enough, Mario. I will taste the flesh soon. Will you finally surrender, or does Peach have to die?" However, the player was unable to move Mario. He just stood there, paralyzed in fear. Quickly, Bowser grabbed Mario and bit off his head. The level would then fade to black before the text "Mario's Eternal Home" appeared on screen. The level began with Mario floating aimlessly in a black void, and as the player went deeper, hellish screams became louder and louder. The story ends with Mario approaching a tombstone that read "Innocence." A1, aren't you? A1, aren't you is a creepypasta written in 2014 by the YouTuber Fawful's Minion. The story begins with the narrator deciding to replay their favorite game, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, on his birthday. The narrator would begin replaying the final battle with the main villain of the game, Fawful. Now, the narrator loves Fawful. He thinks he is one of the best characters in any Mario game, and often enjoys replaying his final battle. However, during the final battle, Mario would get knocked down, and when the player went to give him a life mushroom, it said that he only had one life mushroom remaining. This was strange, as the player had just bought more for the battle. However, the player would continue despite this. But suddenly, during Fawful's next attack, he hit Luigi, causing the game to freeze and crash. The narrator decided that that was enough for the day and decided to finish some chores, but right before he left, a horrific scream came from his DSi. It was Luigi. He could hear it clearly through the DSi speakers, and as he got closer, he could hear bones cracking before the screams went to silence. The narrator, horrified by the sound, decided that he should just go to sleep. He was probably just tired and was hearing things. However, when the narrator woke up, his world had changed. The grass had become a deep shade of gray, and the trees were now colorless too. When the narrator went outside, he found an envelope from his parents, which contained a Mario hat. The hat felt real and warm, like somebody had just worn it. This feeling gave the narrator an urge to look at his DSi again to find out what had really happened last night. Upon reopening the game, the title screen had changed. Now Luigi's name was blacked out, and the letters A-O-N-E were all highlighted, and any use of the letter L was completely gone. The game began with Mario entering a dilapidated version of Princess Peach's castle alone without his brother. Inside the castle, the player would come across toads that looked very similar to Fawful, but if they were possessed, and they taunted Mario about the mushroom from before. The toads would begin surrounding Mario and would take his hammer, saying that he no longer deserved it, which would cause Mario to black out and wake up in Bowser's castle. While playing the game, the narrator's world would begin to change. The daytime quickly shifted to nighttime, and the narrator would pass out from exhaustion. Waking up, the narrator would find his DSi dead, and it refused the charge. However, this relieved the narrator. He thought he was finally free from the game. However, suddenly, sharp, long nails began scratching against his window. The narrator would quickly grab a baseball bat and run outside to confront the thing that was scratching at the glass, but the only thing that was there was a gray hat. The gray hat was clearly Luigi's, and inside there was another letter reading A1, aren't you, along with a fully loaded pistol. The narrator would pick up the gun and make his way to his mailbox, where he had gotten another letter from his parents. Inside there was a note. It read, "A you need is you." At this point, the narrator was fed up with this thing haunting him and screamed out, "I read your notes, I played your game, I deserve an answer." But the back of the letter answered the narrator's question with it simply reading, Fawful. Shocked, the narrator saw something out of the corner of his eye coming from the mailbox, a small golden shimmer. It was his mother's wedding ring, stained with blood. Suddenly, a loud ear-piercing noise came from his DSi, so loud that he could hear it from outside of his home. The narrator quickly ran outside, looking for the console, tearing apart his room in the process until he realized that the console was in his pocket. Without thinking, the narrator shot into his pocket using the handgun. However, the bullet just phased through the DSi, causing the bullet to go into his leg. He grabbed the console, pointing his handgun at it at a point-blank range, but he noticed something. The system had turned on despite being previously dead. Upon reopening up the game, it showed a gray room with Fawful standing in the middle. However, Fawful was different. He was taller, had a longer cloak, and had a long, creepy smile. Fawful would approach the screen and begin speaking. "Piteous pity, Fawful sees you're lonely. Is that being so?" said Fawful. The narrator was frozen with fear. However, oddly, he felt calmed by his words and nodded in agreement at the DSi. "That is what happens when you have the specialness. Fawful has it too," said Fawful. "You make Fawful happy," he said as he got closer to the screen. "Does Fawful make you happy?" The narrator felt soothed by Fawful's words as he began to lightly hug his system. "Alone, are you? That is such badness. All you need is you and Fawful," spoke the creature before the DSi's screen shattered and shards of glass dug into the narrator's skin. The story ends with Fawful taking over the narrator's body and possessing him, and posting this story for Fawful's amusement. In reality, the story was actually based on a nightmare the writer had, and if you're interested in knowing more about that, then I highly advise you to check out the video, The Scariest Mario Creepypasta Ever Written by Hey Peter, if you want to learn more. Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 is a creepypasta released in 2010 by a user known as ProGamer664. The story begins with the narrator finding an ad online for a copy of Super Mario 64 in mint condition and orders it. However, when the copy arrives at their home, the game is extremely damaged and the label was ripped off, with it being replaced with duct tape, but the narrator decides to play it anyway. Upon opening up the game, Mario is placed directly inside Peach's castle with no intro sequence, dialogue, music, or toads. Inside the castle, the only door that worked was the Bomb Bomb Battlefield door, but the portrait shows a black and white image and the level is titled Turned Back. Once the narrator entered the level, everything appeared normal until Luigi appeared and began hunting down Mario with unnatural speed. At the top of the mountain, instead of King Bomb Bomb, there laid a cabin, and once inside, Mario was greeted with Luigi hanging from the ceiling. And the level ends with Mario dropping to his knees, sobbing over his brother's corpse. After the level, the castle changes drastically. The Bomb Bomb Battlefield painting now shows Luigi's corpse, and the room becomes a cult-like hallway lined with white-robed toads. At the end of the hallway, there was a brand new painting of the narrator's family photo that had been taken very recently. At this point, the narrator had had enough and attempts to power off the system, but the system fails to shut off and forces the player to keep playing. Entering the family portrait, a massive shapeless black void chases Mario endlessly through looping platforms until it eventually consumes him, costing a life. Back in the castle, the family in the painting appears partially decomposed. Re-entering the painting, Mario is trapped in a small room with the mad piano from Big Boo's haunt, and when he is caught by the piano, Mario explodes into a gory puddle of organs and bones. Once again, Mario lost a life and was ejected from the level. The castle was now on fire, and the family portrait looked even more decayed. Entering the painting for one final time, Mario lands on a lonely island with a sign reading, "Dive." Underwater, nothing exists except Mario and darkness. After swimming for an impossibly long time without drowning, a massive eel suddenly appears and devours Mario whole. The story ends with the player seeing the painting one more time. Now his family was all skeletons, and restarting the game simply displayed the skeletal picture on the selected save file. And selecting another save file changes the positions of the skeletons, implying that they are a different family, suggesting an ongoing cycle or curse. Super Mario the Smiling Mushroom. Super Mario the Smiling Mushroom is a video created by Rodrigo Jogos on August 23rd, 2024. The video follows the narrator as they tell a story of an old Mario fan game that traumatized them when they were younger and their attempts to find the game now. So the narrator began their search and found an old website that conveniently contained the game. Overall, the game looked innocent. It just showed screenshots of Mario teaches typing. However, one screenshot stood out. The screenshot showed Mario with blacked out eyes and the text, "Mario teaches typing too," above him. The narrator immediately recognized the game and downloaded it. Upon opening up the game, the player would attempt to choose Luigi or Princess Peach. However, the game would just remove those options, forcing them to choose Mario. During the level, everything appeared normal. It was just Mario teaches typing. However, suddenly, during the level, the game would crash and fade to Mario in a dark black void. "I couldn't protect him," said Mario in the darkness. "It's my fault Luigi's gone." Mario would begin shaking like he'd seen a ghost before the game would return to normal, but something was clearly off. The dark void slowly began consuming the level before it completely consumed the screen. Text would appear on screen. "I know what you did. I know you're afraid. I know you're trying to escape from the responsibilities after my death. Who do you think I am?" The scene then cuts to Mario and Luigi running away from a group of thwomps before showing Luigi getting crushed by one. Blood splatters across the castle walls, and Mario looked on, horrified. Opening up the second level, the player receives a strange letter from Bowser, encouraging Mario to come to the castle or else he will skin Princess Peach alive. After exploring the castle, Mario would be faced with the decomposing corpse of Princess Peach rotting on the floor right next to a grinning Bowser. Mario breaks down. He had failed to save the two most important people in his life, his brother and the princess. The level ends with Mario looking up and seeing a smiling mushroom looking down above him before his face begins to distort. This leaves the narrator with one final level. Opening up the final level, it shows Mario walking down a long path as he talks to the player. Mario explains that he feels extremely guilty for the death of his friends and wishes that he could have done more to save them, blaming himself for what happens. The game ends with revealing that Bowser had worked with the Smiling Mushroom to send the Mushroom Kingdom into darkness and leave Mario forever haunted by the death of his friends. Mario Kart 64 Driven. Mario Kart 64 Driven is a creepypasta released in 2013. The story begins with the narrator selling his old Nintendo 64 consoles and games and regretting it. He and his brother managed to buy back the same Nintendo 64 from a used game store. However, the shop owner included another game, with that being Mario Kart 64. At first, the game was pretty normal, but the narrator noticed all the lap times for the previous races were 6 minutes and 66 seconds. This creeped out the narrator, and when he went to go delete the previous save data, the console would shut off and play a strange recording of Mario saying, "You have driven us, and now you must watch us suffer," in a scared and depressing tone. This event would really disturb the narrator, with his brother insisting that the game is just a modified cartridge and that they would investigate it more in the morning. In the morning, when the brothers resume the game, the corruption becomes undeniable. Track visuals display threatening messages like "you will pay," Lakitu's starting signal changes from "go" to "die," and characters scream in agony rather than reacting cartoonishly to being hit. During the race, Yoshi is violently torn apart, begging for the pain to end, and at the end of the race, a distorted victory theme plays while dead racers are labeled RIP instead of losers. After shutting off the console, Mario appears on screen in a grotesque, mutilated state. He warns the brothers that deleting the data killed his record, and now all the characters will die in the game. The message, "You have driven us," appears repeatedly on the screen, blaming the brothers for the characters' suffering. After this confrontation, the brothers both agree to begin filming the game and document their findings. Reopening the game, they are greeted with a horrific scene of slaughter, fire, and despair. Once happy heroes like Mario and Luigi cried and looked on in fear as villains like Bowser reveled in sadistic pleasure. Upon being taken to the character select screen, the brothers chose Toad, who instead of his normal happy smile, begins crying. The races had become gruesome executions, where the entire Mario cast were tortured and mauled, except for villains like Bowser and Wario, who had made deals with demonic entities to spare themselves. Eventually, the game directly identifies the narrator by his real name, replacing the rankings with RIP Richard. This leads the brothers to the final level, Rainbow Road, which had become a hellish landscape. Here, the narrator encounters Mario, who begs to be run over and killed. However, the narrator refuses to give in to the game's cruelty. The race ends and has Toad appear in front of the Mario 64 castle, which now resembles hell itself. A mock victory ceremony occurs where Bowser, Donkey Kong, and Wario stand triumphant, only to be brutally executed by a demon. The remaining characters, now blind, mutilated, and bleeding, all accuse the narrator in unison for abandoning them, including Toad, who turns to the screen with bleeding eyes and condemns the narrator for abandoning them when he got rid of the N64. The story ends with the narrator and his brother smashing the cartridge and finding their bathroom covered in blood, with the words, "It will never end, you have driven us," written on the mirror. Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Screams. Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Screams is a creepypasta created by MattBoy115 on June 13th, 2013. The story follows the narrator, who one day becomes nostalgic for their favorite game, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, and decides to replay the game. Grabbing their Super Nintendo, the narrator quickly grabbed their copy of Super Mario RPG. However, something was wrong. The cartridge was hot to the touch, even though it hadn't been touched in months. Upon opening up the game, the opening cutscene was different. Usually it's a cutscene of Princess Peach getting kidnapped by Bowser, Mario opening up his door, seeing her missing, and jumping out to save the day. Instead, Peach lay in the same flower field, crying as if something bad had happened. Bowser never appeared to kidnap the princess like normal, and Mario came out of his house and embraced Peach before the cutscene faded away. The scene then cuts to Mario sitting alone in his house. Mario glanced over towards the empty chair beside him and began quietly sobbing to himself. Something bad had happened to Luigi. Mario got up to grab his hammer from the wall, however becomes distracted by his brother's hammer hanging on the shelf. The scene then cuts back to Princess Peach sitting on her bed and brushing her hair before the title appears on screen, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Screams. Opening up the game, the selection screen already had a file that existed. It was titled Payback, and Mario's sprite appeared more on edge than usual. Upon starting the game, Mario says something that he never said in the original release. Mario said, "How could this happen? My own brother, taken from me. I'm gonna do something. They have to pay." Looking at the world map, the world would appear destroyed, with craters from bomb blasts surrounding the Mushroom Kingdom and once lush forests now burnt and charred. Mario ran quickly through the first level. All the enemies were already nothing but ash, and Mario was forced to smash his way through a horde of dead bodies with his hammer. Entering the Mushroom Kingdom, the once bustling kingdom now laid in chaos. Toads ran around scared, and others lay around dead or dying. This caused the narrator to start crying. They were watching their favorite game and characters suffer. It was just all too overwhelming. The narrator would pause the game to recollect themselves. However, when they came back, the game had a message for them. It said, "You left the game. I wouldn't recommend doing that again." Mario eventually enters the castle, which is somewhat intact. Inside, Mario encounters the Chancellor, who begins to explain that the kingdom is likely beyond saving. However, before he could finish, Mario whips out his hammer and smashes the Chancellor's neck, killing him instantly. This shocks all the Toads in the room and causes the princess to run down and confront Mario about the murder. Mario admits that he no longer recognizes himself and decides to leave, believing that he is a danger to others. Peach asks to come with him, acknowledging the kingdom is already doomed, but Mario refuses to risk hurting her too. Suddenly, a grotesque alien explodes out of the Chancellor's corpse and leaps at Mario. An RPG-like battle would begin with the monster, however Mario's attacks did nothing, and the alien's attacks just immediately killed Mario, almost like it was scripted. After the fight, the alien swallows Mario whole, and the game cuts to Nimbus Land, where Peach and the Toads mourn the death of Mario. The game ends with Luigi looking on with a crooked, evil smile, like he had planned out Mario's death. Super Mario 64 Beta Archive. Super Mario 64 Beta Archive was an ARG series that began on YouTube in June of 2020. The series followed Eric and Meg, who found a bunch of old footage, demos, early models, and images from the beta of Super Mario 64. The series was extremely well made, and the images and music that were made for the series were extremely convincing. However, sadly, the series was cancelled due to infighting, with the creator allegedly treating his staff poorly. This would ultimately result in the series being cancelled, and some of the original people who worked on the series creating a parody of the ARG called Ultra Mario Bros. Archive, which just made fun of the original ARG. Mario.3.exe Gore Game. Mario.3.exe was a Mario 3 ROM hack released in 2014 by a user known as LaLaLupsy. Now, I'm not going to show any footage of this game, as the game allegedly showed real shock footage of people dying and acts of animal cruelty when Mario jumps on various enemies. Now, I have heard some rumors of comments on the uploads of the Let's Plays on YouTube saying the gore was fake. However, either way, it is a very lazy way to make your game scary. And that was the end of the ultimate Mario Creepypasta Iceberg. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like, and check out my channel if you like icebergs and content just like this. And make sure to leave a comment about your favorite Mario creepypasta in the comments below. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!